Yes, sir.
All right. Stuff. We here.
We here, bro.
Man, I guess before we even get into it, because I don't even know what we're talking about today.
Right.
So it's 7:40 in the morning, and you text me like 30
What
minutes.
I text you? Because that's important.
Oh man, context.
Man, all of it is so important to the conversation. So I'm gonna take lead on this one.
Let's
because
go.
this one I don't always take credit for things and try to be like humble and stuff. But in this one, it's not really credit; it's more or less blame. So I'm the reason we're here at this time in the morning right now, which is 7:44. I think. Let's see. I text you first at 6:56.
6:56. Okay.
And so I'm gonna start with the quote, because if I don't, I'm not gonna get to it, because that's how much is like I feel like it's unlocked for me. So I was with one of my coworkers, and I don't know if she said it or I said it, but both of us had been looking like on social media, and it was one of these kind of quote things, and it was saying you build your confidence on the time you let elapse between when you think something and when you start the task.
Okay.
And like that, the bit of time in between that, like when you decrease that time, you increase your confidence. And like,
that makes sense.
So like we just were both talking about how have a lot of tasks on our plate, and kind of like managing that, and the way to manage that, and the way to feel, I guess, good in the process, and to stay motivated, to not get overwhelmed. Taking that and then unpacking it backwards. I've been taking my mornings. We both. I was worried about texting you at 7 in the morning. I'm like, man, I really should not be sending this text out in the morning like this, because like he might not be up, it might be interrupt his day or whatever. But like I know for me, and it's crazy. It's so much going on at once.
Yeah.
I'm on Facebook right now, commenting on like everybody is saying they've been up at like, why are we up at 6:30 on a Saturday? So it's like for me, I think my eyes opened at it's probably like 5:30 ish. Probably when I got to bed this morning, and that's late for me lately, because like my eyes open from anywhere from between 3 and 5. Whenever my eyes open, my feet hit the floor.
That's wild, bro.
At first it started like kind of like restlessness, I guess, and I just I haven't really, by and large, been a person that sleeps through the full night, so I'm normally up at some point anyway. But I just started getting up. At first I wasn't really doing nothing. I might straighten up, I might like check on some laundry or like do something. Or just that was my scroll time, because I had kind of took scrolling out of my daytime, and so I was like, okay, well, this is time I can waste just kind of because I'm up.
Yeah.
And then like one of the days I was like, I should probably try doing something productive though. Like, what if I start like doing stuff during this time? And it became like my life hack. There's so many things going on, and like I put that into practice, and like right after I did it, I remembered like where that notion came from, like originally, like, because I feel like I just did that, but then I was like, wait a minute. I was like, this makes sense now. It made something else that I seen along my like knowledge journey make sense. And as I start to accomplish more things, I'm like, this is what Kobe was talking about. Throughout his career, he used to add training to his day by like just doing 4 or 5 sessions a day, every single day. So getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, working out, then, work out for an hour or two, come home, have breakfast, maybe take a nap or something, send everybody off to work, then go to another one, come home, rest, do whatever there, and goes. And so he used to do like maybe like 3, and then 7, and then one at maybe 10, and then one at 12 or whatever, and like and he was stacking that every day, and the work he was getting done, even though he was doing it like in smaller increments, like he was getting so far ahead of everybody else. And like that's hard to believe, because you only see him be like this much better than everybody else.
Yeah.
But when it matter, that's all it take is like just being able, not even really being better than everybody else. And that's the other part that it kind of unlocked for me, that it isn't so much being better than everybody else, is knowing yourself. Like,
and conditioning. Like,
you condition to it. Like you've seen so many possibilities, like, and you just have it ingrained in your system, and that confidence is there because I put the work in. So now it's just normal. So for me, it was like, as I'm doing that this morning, particularly, I just was thinking about this space and how we've been using this space. And as I was thinking about it, I was like, I need to text him now. And so I'm like, over to my phone, I text him, I'm like, man, I don't even know if he up. I don't want to disturb him, but it's one of the things where like it was important enough to like, I would put that in the message. My bad if I wake you up, but like hopefully you up already. And then, I look at your social media, I noticed you up doing runs and cold plunge and stuff like that. So I'm like, it's a high possibility, and it wasn't. It was later than I thought. I looked and I was like, oh, it's 7, so it shouldn't be too bad. But also, I just was like, I got to get this out right now, because for me, it just unlocked so many things. And it's like helping me unlock so many things to just kind of be able to move forward and be able to like control the way that I move, and like just the intentionality of it, and the things I've been able to get done.
Before we even jump into that, I think just a little backstory too. I was already up at like 5 this morning.
Yeah.
And normally, Saturdays are the days I try to do like my long runs outside, but I actually did that yesterday. So I was like, man, I really got nothing to do. So I was kind of kicking myself for even being up this early.
Wow.
So I'm just sitting there on my computer doing some work. And then I get the text message, and I was like, oh, he thinks I'm asleep right now. But what I love about like our friendship and our relationship, like even if I was asleep, I still would have got up and been here for this conversation, because one, I'm intrigued. so anytime my interest is kind of piqued, I'm there. But also to have that space, because the other thing I absolutely love is just to have these conversations. And I'm curious, is it just about the time that you had set aside, or so what exactly was it that you wanted to kind of deep dive into?
I think more or less the ability, like how many things that unlock for me. So just kind of exploring that in real time. Cause generally like I processed through that and I was like, it's kind of happening right now. The way I typically, when I'm going to feel like I'm speaking somewhere that's going to be presented or like that's going to be recorded, I'm a memory guy. So I talked about that in one of my TikToks. Is like, do you like memorize what you're going to say? Do you write it down? Normally I've kind of gone through it in my head enough, because it's not necessarily a map that I'm going to say verbatim, but I've learned to kind of map it out so that I'm not like reaching for it in real time. But it was the most interesting thing on the car ride over is that like, as I was trying to map out what I was going to say, I never even got to the phrase. So I knew to just start with the phrase, because as I was trying to explain it, I was like, okay, sidebar in here to give context. And as I'm giving context, sidebar in here to give context. Because it's just like that one little piece has kind of like connected a lot of stuff for me. And that's what it's been about lately for me. And that's where I just approach life. So it's definitely how I approach therapy, is like, it's more or less of like a 2K bill is how I think of it. And it's like, I use analogies, but again, that's how I learn life, because I'm learning that like the analogies, like the way things are structured kind of for me is how simple life is becoming. Like very, when I put things in place, it's very much, it's helping me just like function at probably at my, I feel like peak level.
Yeah, I see. I always love the analogies that you do give, because like you said, with the 2K bill, we have all the player attributes, right? And I think about therapy as helping you to build some of those attributes, whether it's patience, whether it's communication skills, right? We don't typically think about those skills in like the day-to-day, or how what affects us mentally kind of affects how we handle things throughout the day. Yeah. So building up that toolkit, as we talked about last time, and doing that internal work is helping you to get your sliders up.
Right.
Right.
And I think for me, so what this moment, like one of the things that this moment led me to is why I always advocate for therapy, is because for me, it wasn't the positive sliders that I was adding. Everyone thinks about, I could be a better, I could do this better, I could do that better. For me, I had some negative stuff that I really had changed that actually changed. And that was like the moment I'm like, oh, I didn't think I would ever get some of this stuff off of me. I feel like right now I'm struggling with is like, or not necessarily struggling with, but it was just a very real phase, is like at this age and stage, it is my turn up to like be responsible, more responsible for things. Like we're in that time where like our parents are getting older. So it's like we're at the reins of a lot of stuff. I've been, ahead of my own family since 20 or so, but that just didn't feel weighty at first. We was all figuring it out. I was young. Everybody around me was young. I didn't feel like the weight of that. I just was young and cocky and just felt like I could do whatever. And I felt like there was so much time in front of me. Like at this age, I feel like we're up and responsible, but also still learning. And I'm like,
Yep,
that, like being in charge while learning for me, it was just the being able to hold that space correctly. And even like in therapy, that is like where I'm using right now, the phrase that is working for me is how I'm holding things. Because you think about that physically, but like I've been thinking about it more figuratively. So that's been like everything that I've been working on is how I'm holding things.
Yeah.
Because that is to me what makes it easier or harder. Because think about it in the physical. When we working out, like if you're doing a rep and you're doing it correctly, it don't get heavy until you do a whole lot of them. But start doing something that's either too heavy for you or you are doing it incorrectly, and see how fast you'll burn out on something that you could have probably done. Like you did one rep where you could have did 7, but you're just doing it so improperly, you holding it so wrong that like that's really what it is. So like when I found out that therapy, I could like move stuff for real and really get some real change, I'm like, oh no, you got me signed up. I wish I could go more than once a week.
And that's what we talked about last weekend. I put this quote on my page yesterday. It says, no one can take the work that you've done within. That's yours forever.
Yeah.
And like a lot of times when we think about therapy, we're thinking about how we can kind of cope with the world. But sometimes it's how we can kind of manage ourselves as well. And like those times where it is just us with ourselves and our thoughts. And I think enough doesn't really get put on like reducing some of those toxic or those negative behaviors that we have or those patterns. You know, it's always like, okay, well, I need to do better. I need to do better with this, that, and the other. But it's like, I also need to stop doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And just over the course of our friendship, you know, you and I have kind of been each other's accountability partners.
Yeah, for sure.
In multiple avenues, you know. I think about like kind of reducing that negative behavior and like the intentionality that kind of comes with that and the discipline. Like going back to like what you was talking about with Kobe, like it takes discipline to add those things and even just to kind of recognize some of those patterns.
Yeah. And for me, I want to stop right there about recognizing, because what I kind of, I'm learning so much during this, but one of the things that like kind of I was reflecting on is that like that is, I think, one of the first gifts I was ever like, and I'll dive into the church bag for a little bit. One of the first gifts that was ever spoken over me is that I was paying attention. I'll never forget. I was like, ooh, I guess I will forget the age. I was young enough that I wasn't even playing yet. This is when like, you still had to earn your keep as a musician. So like there was a drummer, there was a percussionist, and then I was like the assistant percussionist, bro. I was only playing bongos on some songs when he got off for them. But like, even in doing that, like I went to all the rehearsals, I paid attention. Like it's probably the most I paid attention to music for a long time. But like during the service, I also like, everybody sat in the pews and like we had steps that went up to the pulpit. And I used to sit like, I'm sitting like as close as I can to everything. And so I'm like right in there. And I am like, when the service is going on, like I'm watching everything. That's all I ever done was watch stuff. Like that's just, I'm observant. And the preacher said it. And he was like, you watching it. He was like, and I've been paying attention to the fact that you've been watching this entire service. He was like, and I've been watching you as you watch everything. And I don't even remember what else he said about that, but I remember noticing that somebody noticed that I was watching. I'm like, it must be some value to that. And like, that has been what has like stuck with me, because I'm always paying attention. So like in therapy, I'm like, man, okay, well, we talking about all this stuff that we want to do and this, that, and the third, and moving stuff and like you said, coping with the world, because that's what you do first. But I'm like, that means if I can learn to cope with the world, I could probably start, if I change some stuff, like, is it possible for me to like do that, apply that in other areas and like transfer that skill to not just cope with the world, but like I'm coping with it because I don't like how I feel. Can I change the action? And maybe like, will I get something different? Like, is there a way to really change the action? Because you feel like for a long time, I don't know if I was connecting the action to the consequence. Like we hear that all the time, that what you're doing is why you're where you are, but you blaming everything else, or you like using all the external stuff, but like maybe you could just change, but just feels like you can't for a long time.
That reminds me of like that weightlifting analogy that you just talked about. Like sometimes if you're lifting, if you're doing it incorrectly, because I remember trying to do the bench press. Yeah. And I'm like bending my back and all that stuff. And like I remember the coach was like, you're not going to feel it immediately that you did this wrong, but tomorrow morning you're going to be like, man, why is everything off? Yep. And that's kind of like how it is with some of our actions, man. If you don't connect the actions with the results oftentimes. Like you might be doing something, you might not see the immediate effects of it, but man, I really didn't check why I get these tics or why I'm so angry. Like if you don't address it, you're going to keep feeling it when it comes up in these different areas, and you're taking it out on the people that are probably trying to help you the most.
For sure. And that's the thing, like the people who are closest to you are always who get it. And it's always, so that's the thing that I took another church bag. The church bag do be like, the people who are well in that space, even if you're not affiliated with religion or whatever, like there's always something to take away from that. And that's how even with my journey with religion, it's not even so much about my level of belief, because that has just, that's been what it's been as far as the journey, but it's always something to take away from that. There's always something to take away. And there was a preacher who was talking about fruit versus root. So like the fruit is growing, like that's what we're seeing, like the action, but like that's really from something, like that's coming from, in a lot of places we're also like that doesn't directly translate. So you're saying like we're lifting, so you lifting and you moving your back, but like you feel like you really only using your arms. So you're gonna be like a day or two later, you're gonna be like, why is my back hurting? Like, because you was contorting your back while you was lifting. While you were trying to strengthen your arms, you were using your back improperly. And so even though you didn't feel like you were working out your back, you are unaware of that. Like it's so much stuff happening, and nothing is like singular. That's the other thing. One of the other things I learned, that not many things are very singular. There are so many reasons for things. And so it's like, for me, that helps too, because it's how I drive myself, because it doesn't necessarily have to be a singular reason while I'm headed towards something. And that just widens the path for me. Like it doesn't feel like I have to only get there, I got to be there, go like this way. Like for me, it just helped me like relax, and so I can just naturally, or just get myself to keep moving through the process.
It's like you can have unhealthy habits and positive intentions. So I think I talked about last time, like how I started having like stress-related stomach problems that I couldn't identify. I was doing everything. I was in my doctoral program. I'm working. I'm trying to show up as a husband and father, and I'm doing all the right things. But by not paying attention to the stress that it was putting on me, it's affecting all these other different areas. And sometimes you can have the right intentions, but get some negative consequences as well if you're not really paying attention. And I think that's where therapy kind of helps to, like, my friend once before said, like, you can't see the picture while you're in the frame. So sometimes, like, you're in there, like, everything looks good, but somebody on the outside could be like, you know what? Yeah, a hair's out of place. Or, like, you know what? Your shirt's slanted, or whatever it might be. You see that a lot as a photographer. But it's like sometimes you need somebody on the outside of your situation to be able to help you inside your situation and help you to build those toolkits so that you can be your best self. And, I mean, I attribute that mostly to therapy and then having open and honest conversations, like with your friends or whoever else it is that you're talking to, instead of just bottling all this stuff up inside.
For me right now, everybody that's like really have access to me, I have those conversations with, because they just naturally happen as I'm having conversations. So like we talk all the time because we're talking about those type of things. And that's kind of one of the reasons why we talk as much as we do, because it's like, man, I'm exploring this conversation or exploring whatever topics at the same time you are. And like you're saying, you're outside the frame, so I'm going to be able to bounce that idea off you and be like, is this? And you're going to, give me your honest opinion and without judging me. And so in that kind of space, I was just telling one of my other friends and kind of explaining to her, really in reverse order, trying to get her to see, and it's a female friend, get her to see the difference between intentions and execution, because your intentions do not always match, like what you're saying, your execution. You can intend to do well, and then just along the way, like you said, you're not doing it right, or you're doing it incorrectly, or it's not being received well, because it's also, in a lot of situations, it's not about what you're giving or how you're giving or anything about you, but it's about how people are receiving that. And if you take stock into how people are receiving what you're giving out, again, you just lose some of that ability to, like, you have an intention, but you can't control ever how something is received. So it's like accepting that is a big part of, like, it's just a big part of letting that go and being able to identify that. To even be able to move it, because you got to identify it first. Like, and finding that your back hurt, but you was lifting, but that probably wasn't the only thing you did that day. So you got to search back through your day to be like, well, did I sleep wrong? Did I fall at some point? Did I run into something? Did somebody hit me? Like, we always be joking, like, well, somebody beat me in my sleep, or like, because you do like the first, I think that is one of the things that I've learned to do first is like, okay, I got to stop and start to roll the tape back and try to see as many things as I can, because it's not always very direct, like what's going on.
And I think the more distance that you put between those things, the harder it is to pinpoint.
Yeah, because more things are happening.
So when you're in your 40s and your 50s and you're trying to figure out, like, why am I the way that I am? It's kind of hard to backtrack that and to understand, like I said, those origin stories of what makes us who we are. I'm glad that I got in therapy when I did, and, still kind of maintaining it and trying to build like that toolkit, because I know like this is going to be an ongoing process. And I think everybody wants to be like the best version of themselves. So like, why not be intentional about your efforts? Because it's one thing to say that you want to do something, but you got to have that action behind it. Kobe said he wanted to be the greatest, and he put the work in to make sure that he was the greatest and that he knows how to show up. I remember you had mentioned it, like the purpose of all that preparation is so when the moment happens that it's not uncomfortable for you. That's why Kobe's taking that last shot. He's like, I've done this shot over and over and over and over again in practice. So if the shot goes in, great. If it doesn't go in, well, I know that I did what I was supposed to do. Yeah. So that's kind of how I take therapy, like, in my friendships, my relationships, as a husband, father, friend, all those things. If I know that I'm doing the work, every time's not gonna be a home run, but like I'm trying my best to show up as my best for those and the people that I love. Yeah.
And it's about like, that's when you learn that it really is about the journey. And like when you lock into that, like, that's why for me, like, that's why I text you like, oh, we gotta do this now. You like, we can do it right. I text you just saying like, hey, I think we need to like have this. You like, we should do it now. I'm like, you right, we should do it right now. Like, I'm like, I'm getting dressed as I'm texting you, because it's like, and that is, man, I want to have a full episode about this. So I was thinking of another analogy, and it just kind of came to me. Is like the biggest gift I feel like I've been given in this moment is that my eyes are open. Like I'm so aware, and it's like, I liken it to like when you go to like experience like a Disney World or something. I've been blessed to go to. I've been to both Disney World and Disneyland. But when you're going to some place like that, like there's a long drive into it. Like when you get to like the front of it, the gate, and you're seeing like all of the stuff that they're basically like teasing. Like you're seeing the signs and you're seeing this, and you looking over and you're seeing that, and you're seeing whatever. And it's like being asleep during that. You'll wake up and you just be in the parking lot, and you'll have missed like the excitement that like the drive up. And it's like, I had my head down working really, really, really hard. And I feel like I was like so singular focused on just like getting through where I felt like I was at. And now to have like my head up, like watching things like start to come together, like so I had therapy for a long time and then I didn't. But then I saw like the work that I did then, I saw the result from it, like, oh, wait a minute. Like that is like, again, we talk about the toolkit. Now something happened. At some point I realize it. At some point I go into the toolkit, and then like I'm over it. And I have realized how like polished even that parts of that are, like not every parts, because that's why I'm back in therapy now, because again, it was the ability to recognize that I like something happened. I recognized it. I went for the toolkit and it didn't work. And I was like, oh, well, I know therapy works because it worked before. Yeah. So that was, again, it's like, it's ongoing. It's always about that journey. And it was like, even I was kind of leery about setting therapy down, but it was very like polished. I feel like I was kind of at a place where I want to say didn't need it, because I just feel like you always need refining, but it was nice to like pull back and just kind of see what was going on, and just to get a chance to try to, what I wanted was to be in control in the first place, was to be in control, to be able to like feel like I'm making my own decisions from a very clear and concise space. Yeah. So I was like, is therapy a crutch? Am I using therapy as a crutch? Because we always talk about anything is good in moderation. So like, if I'm not actively working on something like that I don't have the tools for, then do I need to be going as actively? So then I just went down to like check in. So I still was always checking in. But that definitely was a part of that journey, and like just making it the journey and learning that it is the journey, and like locking into that part of it. So being awake for seeing it is like, it's incredible. It's an incredible experience. I got here a little bit of time before he did, because again, I was thirsty to get here. And like I also have these moments where now, because I'm seeing it, it's overwhelming. And like I remember days where I didn't feel any emotion.
You talked about that on the last episode.
Yeah.
And then like when they started flooding back.
It's crazy because that came back in a weird way. Like I only felt negative emotion for a long time. And so the only time I would have emotions, I went in angry. And probably, so the last time I cried was probably like a breakdown, like where I'm like I feel like I'm at the end of my rope, whatever's going on, and I just have to let it out. So I was getting to those points. But those were only ever so often. But now it's like being open and being emotional and feeling happy, excited. Like I was sitting in the car on the way over here and just like being thankful, and like literally cried to the point of like being inconsolable, and why I'm wearing shades right now, because like I don't fight it either. Like it started, I did know, sometimes I don't even be knowing why, like what is going on. I'm just feeling away, I'm just feeling heavy, and it started pouring out, and I'm like, oh, well, this is one of the moments. Well, thankfully I'm in the car alone. I don't really care, because it just is like, because when you go without that for so long, I remember conversations, and it just made me think of like, I remember having a conversation where someone was asking me like, what's going on? I'm like, I feel numb, and I don't want to feel numb, because I want to be able to judge properly on what I should do. And I don't want to make that from a place of emotion, but I didn't want to make that devoid of emotion. And like, the thing about that was like, when I went numb, that wasn't just negative. And that's what I learned very quickly, is that like, you can numb out if you want to. You'll not feel the bad as much, but on the other side, you will not feel the good as much either. And even though I'm going on a rant, I'm gonna share this story. And it's one of the ones where one of the ways I knew. And shout out to my dad for like being the person who was pulling me to the side to be like, what is going on with you? And it was my birthday. My kids were celebrating me. Everyone was celebrating me. They like put together this. No, it wasn't my birthday. It was Father's Day, because that's why he was there. They put together this like very like restaurant style situation. The kids had on like aprons and stuff, and they had cooked my favorite meal, all that stuff, and so everybody's serving me everything, and I'm just like sitting there like but it was like right after my third surgery. I'm like up to my neck in depression probably at that point. Like never got, diagnosed with anything like that. But like, I mean, as heavy as I've probably ever been mentally. And like, they are doing everything that they know to do to celebrate me. And it's just not in the room. And he like, to the point where he like, bro, because they were younger. So he's like, they're feeling that because they try and you not giving them nothing. And they're serving you and they're trying to celebrate you. And he noticed, and he's a person who isn't very like, he's very nonchalant sometimes. And that's where they say I get it from.
Pops, yeah,
shout out to Pops. Because they say I'm his junior, even though I'm not in his bloodline. Shout out to Harold Kent for doing his big one.
Yes, sir.
Man, I owe him so much. And that's why I always am the proudest, oldest Kent kid. Honorarily. But he's not as much of an expressive person, but he like, yo, are you okay? And I'm like, and honestly, in that moment is what I had to answer honestly. No. Something is off, but it's like when you turn that off, it go off completely. And like going through life not being able to really feel good, bad, or indifferent is like, it's just, you don't feel like you're there.
Well, that's kind of where I was for majority of life because I think more recently when I started getting in therapy, or at least like the past couple of years, opening up a little bit more is making me more vulnerable to the point where, I remember when we was having a whole conversation, it's me, you, Smooth, and DJ about like how y'all were helping like for while I was in school. Mm-hmm. You was driving everybody around and things like that. And you guys were telling me bits of this story that I've never heard. How like, even though, I'm gonna do like a little flash clip to to get my editing bag.
Yes, sir.
But like, even though you guys had made this conversation and this intention to make sure that I got to school, even though both of y'all was like, this ain't for us at the time. But she was like, you never wanted me to have to kind of hold that or, you know, feel inconvenience. And I remember just kind of listening to that story. And like, you'll see it on like the film. Like I caught myself before I fully started crying, but like my eyes are just starting to water up in there. Over like the past couple of years, I've started to really get a little bit more in touch with my feelings.
Yeah.
You know, as my wife will say, because throughout life, you know, I have been a person that doesn't really celebrate the highs, don't get too lows on the lows. And I just been like, even keel. Mm-hmm. But then that's also a problem in life when you're not happy when you should be,
right,
or sad when you should be, because those, as our first lady was preaching last week, those are emotions that you need to have. Because like, how can I help somebody else identify, namely like my son, identify those emotions if I haven't done it myself?
Yeah.
So it's like, man, if you don't do the work for you, you better do the work for
them,
man. And like, that's something that I've been learning a little bit more along this journey as a father. But as we kind of like wrap up, what are some of the things that you would suggest to people? Because I mean, you came in here, you know, very excited and also very I don't want to say like introspective, you know. So how do you recommend?
I think that would be the first thing, is that like, man, start to look for it. When you search for it, like I remember actively searching for it. Like you can find it. You can do it. Like trust the process, lean into whatever process is in front of you, like just take a step. And then like, it's hard to see. I was talking to somebody about like certain trees, like when they grow, you know, trees grow roots first and that grows down, and we're not seeing none of that. And some trees just take longer to come up. But like the trees that take longer to come up are because they're like more solid, or they're gonna grow higher, or they're gonna grow stronger, or they're rare, or they're special. Like, just do the work. I promise you. Just like, even if you ain't seeing the progress, you don't feeling the progress, just like even if it's the smallest of steps, just like keep taking steps forward. Cause like, it's just there. Like, it's just there. I've been working at the process for a long time, but now it's like, we hear all of them adages of like, I'm living in the moments that I prayed for. Bro, I cannot tell you how much that's happening right now in so many spaces. And it's like, and just putting that seed in the ground, watering it constantly, not knowing whether it's gonna come up or not. And all you have is your effort. Like, it's either gonna happen or it's not gonna happen. But like, if you don't try for it to happen, it will not happen. And everybody has said this before. Everybody's gonna keep saying it, but that's for a reason. Like, one of these times you're gonna listen to it. So find the people you listen to. That's another important thing. That's I guess a more guided advice is like, find the voices that move you.
Yeah.
Because that's important, because we're all saying the same thing. Everybody's saying the same thing, because it's about the fit. It's about your individual journey. So like, that is one of the things, I'm glad that you asked this question. That's one of the things that like unlock for me, because one of the hesitations I had about sharing about therapy is that like, I'm understanding how individual my story is. And so everything is not going to be applicable, and I don't want to ever speak in absolutes. Like, this is what worked for me, and I can give you why it worked for me. But what I can tell you is that like, if you trace my steps exactly, like just the actions I took, you will find answers, and you'll find information. You won't find answers. You'll find information, and from like that information, you can build out your choices. Because that's what I wanted to do, is make the most informed choices. Because I want to achieve my goals. So like, okay, how did other people achieve their goals? And then you find out it's a whole lot of different ways to get there. So it's like, it's not one way to do this, but there are people who do it very similar to me. Okay, what can I take from here? What can I take from here? Like, it's about building your own plate. And so find them voices that speak to you and start flooding yourself with that.
Yeah. And for me, I think it's one, intentionality. I think you have to identify that you're in a space that you don't want to be in. And you have to be committed to making those changes, because until you're committed to make the change, it don't matter what steps your therapist gives you, doesn't matter what your friends tell you, the advice. Like, if you're not ready or willing to make that change, it's just going to fall on deaf ears, because there's not going to be any tangible actions that are going to go along with what you're saying. It's an uncomfortable conversation oftentimes that you have to have with yourself, that like, hey, I'm not where I want to be. I'm not the person I want to be, but I want to get there. And once you can make that step, I think then everything else can kind of fall in line. But I think for me, that's where for me, like you said, because I don't want to generalize, that's where it started for me, is like, understanding like I want more. And I want to live life to the fullest. I want to be happy. Like I want to have healthy relationships. So just being a little bit more intentional. On some of the future episodes, I can't wait to dive into some of the things that you talked about today. I love this impromptu conversation that was not on the books and unscripted to the fullest.
Yes, sir. And I love that. I think I'm gonna end how I started, like with that adage. When how you build confidence is like you had the thought, start moving. Like, even if it's a small move. Today, we took a big move. I had a thought, I made a text. You text back, we got dressed, we came here, we recorded this episode. Like, so a lot came from that one thought.
Yeah.
Like, and who knows where this goes off of that. Like, I had one thought, I took an action. Like, so today, like, I got to move a lot of stuff by just taking one, that was a text message. That didn't cost me a lot of energy, but this is where it got me, like, just thought, movement. And, like, so if you can slow that gap down or you can shorten that gap, like, that's definitely, that's my little whatever, my little plug, my little drop for the day. Like, shorten the time. You think it, start moving. Even if it's the smallest of movement. Like when you think it, start moving.
I concur. Nothing else to add.